Welcome to, I guess, what is now the playoff version of Upon Further Review, our Butler Eagle weekly Butler County Area High School football preview show. My name is John Henrietto. I'm the sports editor of the Butler Eagle, and we are brought to you, as we are every week, by our sponsors, Troy Allen Chevrolet, Buick GMC, Conlon Tarker, and the Butler Health System. I'm joined by sports writer Mike Kilroy, and our host for this week, another sports writer, Derek Pida. So, Derek, you can take it away from here.
Week 7 is now in the books. We had mostly regular season games last week, a couple District 9 playoff games mixed in. We're going to start with you, Mike. What really stuck out for you about Week 7 of high school football in Butler County?
Well, what really stuck out to me was that North Catholic Freeport game. It was a hard-hitting game. Got a little out of hand, though. It got pretty chippy there. There was a lot of personal fouls and sportsmanlike conduct penalties. But Freeport, man, they really played their butts off in that game. Like Coach Gaylott said, they're skinny, they're small, but they're tough. They're really tough. And I'm curious to see how Freeport does in the playoffs now because I think even though they lost that game, they got some confidence out of it because they went toe-to-toe with a Titan in the Whippeal, and they gave them everything they had. So that really stuck out at me from this week.
John, how about you?
Well, the game that stood out for me, though, I didn't cover it. Actually, you had the pleasure of covering this game, Derek, was the way Karr City handled Central Clarion in their District 9 playoff game last Friday. Because Karr City, as you recall, only 2 weeks earlier had a big lead on Central Clarion, had just a disastrous fourth quarter, lost that lead, ultimately lost that game by 2 points. And I thought that might mess with the Gremlins mentally a little bit during the rematch. But to the contrary, they came out, and I'm sure you will attest to having seen that game. They came out and just handled what I figured to be a very good Central Clarion team. So that's the game that really stands out for me.
Yeah, I thought that Karr City would be unable to build a lead like they did in the regular season game. They ended up losing that lead. Central Clarion came back and won that regular season game. I thought it was going to be Central Clarion that was up by 2 or 3 scores at one point, and Karr City's season would have come to an end with a playoff loss. As it turned out, they dominated. They got their running game going, which it's kind of a staple at Karr City, but this year it struggled a little bit. But on Friday night, Luke Gehring, 131 yards, 123 yards rushing. I was surprised to see he had only rushed for 131 yards all year leading into that game. That really surprised me. But in any event, they got the running game going and a very convincing win against Central Clarion, 34-9. They move on to the district championship game against Brookfield. We'll talk about that game a little bit later. But moving on to the discussion, we're going to kind of make you the builder of a high school football team just for a few minutes here. We are looking at what player in Butler County would you choose first based strictly on his defensive play this season. John, I'm going to start off with this topic with you. Who do you got?
Well, you're going to limit me to one player here, or can I mention 2 or 3? I'm having a hard time settling on one guy.
Well, mention one, and then you can have a couple honorable mentions.
Okay. My one guy, and this is really going to sound like a strange choice because he's only played this position for 2 games. I'm going to go with middle linebacker for Butler, Cooper Baxter. Their starting quarterback who was moved to middle linebacker a couple of games ago due to a teammate's injury. And Cooper Baxter in 2 games at middle linebacker has had such an impact on Butler's defense. You're talking about a defense that had given up 30, 40 points per game, and they limit the Blackhawk to 14. They kept Slip Rock out of the end zone last week, and he's a big reason for that. He has just been in incredible force right in the middle of that defense. So I'm going to go with Cooper Baxter, Butler, middle linebacker, number 1. My honorable mentions that you're going to grant me, and I'm just going to go with kids who I've personally seen play this season. Tyler Budabar, another linebacker from Knox High School. You can always tell the character of a football player when his team is struggling in terms of one-loss record. And Tyler Budabar, linebacker for Knox, just brings it every single week. I'd love to start a team with him. I'm also going to go with Ben Chismore, another linebacker. You can tell I like linebackers from Mars High School. Ben Chismore, he passes the eye test for me on defense. Just one of those kids. He's involved on virtually every play around the middle of the football field. So those are my choices.
All right, Mike, let's get defensive here. Who do you got? Who's your number 1 pick on defense?
Well, in high school football these days, you need guys who can cover because high school football is becoming a passing happy. It's just like everything else. Everything trickles down, trickles up. NFL's pass happy, college is pass happy. Now high school's getting pass happy. So I'm picking defensive backs here. My number one choice is going to be Micah Rupp from Karr City. He's only a sophomore. He's a safety, but he can cover. He can fly around. He can go sideline to sideline, make tackles. He's big enough to play linebacker. He can come up, support the run. So I think if you're going to build a defense now in high school football, you have to start with a safety like that. And also Tanner Merwin from Union AC Valley. He made the All-State preseason team as a defensive back. He doesn't have the stats that he had last year, probably because people aren't throwing at him. They're kind of trying to stay away from him. The other guys on that team are getting all the interceptions. But he's another guy that, if you're building a team, I think you have to start with good defensive backs who can cover these receivers and control these quarterbacks who are just putting up outrageous numbers right now.
All right. Now I'm going to actually go along with that. As far as the passing game goes, obviously you want your defense to be able to defend against the pass. It's a very big part of today's high school game. But I'm going to take the adage that you can't complete a pass if the quarterback never gets rid of it in the first place. I'm going to go with Josh Miller, a defensive end from Seneca Valley. I was talking to Coach Butchley a couple weeks ago, Seneca's head coach, and he said this kid has the same motor that his older brother, Gabe Miller, has. Gabe Miller's now playing at California U down in south of Pittsburgh in the PSAC. And I remember how dominant Gabe was, and I've only covered Seneca Valley twice this year. But in both games, Josh Miller had a great game. He had 4.5 sacks in the game you covered a couple weeks ago, John, against Baldwin.
Outstanding game.
He's just an absolute relentless pass rusher, and he also plays well against the run too. So his team's going to be in action. We'll see how North Allegheny is able to deal with Josh Miller, but he's my pick, my number one defensive player. He's my pick, defensive end from Seneca Valley. And now we're going to move on to our one over-under for the week. As I mentioned before, Karr City is going up to Brockway for the District 9 championship this week. They have a rematch with Brookfield. I covered the regular season game against Brookville a few weeks ago, and Karr City had 53 rushing yards on 25 attempts. Obviously not a good performance, and they dropped that game. They got shut out by the Raiders, as a matter of fact, 44-0. So the over-under I'm going to stick on this game for Karr City's rushing yards, going up against that Brookfield defense. And obviously they want to be able to run the ball, because you run the ball more, you keep Jack Krug, the quarterback for Brookfield, off the field, and he's obviously capable of big numbers. 125.5 rushing yards for Karr City. Mike, you going over or under for the Gremlins this week?
I'm going to go exact. They're going to have 125.5 yards rushing.
Awesome.
No, they're going to go a little bit under. I think Brookfield, like a lot of teams, you want to make a team one-dimensional. I think they're going to be able to do that. I think they're going to take away that running game. Karr City had trouble the first time. They really have been inconsistent running the ball this year, largely. They had a big game last week, but that's kind of an outlier. They've struggled in a lot of games this year. They've gotten a lot of their work done in the passing game. They're going to have to do that again this week. So I'm going to go under. I think they're going to get around 100 yards rushing this week. So I think they're going to double up, but it might not be enough.
Okay, John, what do you think about this? I
think for Karr City's sake, that number better be over, but because I don't think they're going to stay in this game if it's under that total. And I think it's going to be over. I mean, I think Karr City's ground game's picked it up the last couple of games. They ran the ball extremely well last week, Derek, as you mentioned at Central Clarion. We'll get to our picks a little bit later, and I don't know how they're going to fare against Brookfield overall, but I do think that the running game's coming together. Luke Gehring, you mentioned, Derek, had a huge game last week. He had a big year running the ball for them last year. I'm not sure why he hasn't had the carries this year. If he was nicked up, maybe if there was an injury situation going on, I'm not sure what was happening with Luke Gehring during the regular season. He seems fine now, and I think he'll be a big part of that rushing offense. I'm not going to say they're going to go way over, but I think they'll go slightly over this week.
Okay. I mentioned Gehring's performance last week in the playoff win over Central Clarion. He had 123 yards. As a team, Karr City rushed for 281. So obviously that's much more closer to the Karr City running game that we're used to seeing over the past, 2 decades. I think this game, I do think Karr City will be able to keep this game close enough early on that they're not going to have to worry about throwing the ball 3 times, on the first 3 downs of every possession to try to keep up with Brookville. I think they're going to keep it close enough that they are going to be able to run the ball. I think they are going to go over 125 yards as a team. But, John, as you alluded to, we'll get to the picks later. rushing the ball. I think they're going to have more success this time against Brookfield's defense, but we'll see if the team is able to actually pick up a win, which would send them to the state playoffs because we're talking about a district championship here.
Yep.
So Mike's going under. John and I are both going over. We'll see how it turns out. Now we go to our predictions segment. And first, before we get into the playoff games, we're going to talk about 3 regular season games. This is 2020. Usually the playoffs start and teams are done when it comes to the regular season. The only teams left are playing playoff games. Not the case this year. We have 3 regular season games this week. The first one we're going to talk about is Erie at Butler. Butler going for its first 3-game winning streak. And, John, you might know this. I don't know. When's the last time Butler won 3 straight times?
Well, it depends on how you look at it. On the field, because Butler won by a forfeit situation against Hickory to start the 2002 season, which technically gave them a 3-game win streak to start the year, but they lost that game to Hickory on the field. So if you're talking about a 3-game win streak on the field, you got to go back to 1998 when nobody other than Eric Christie, the current Butler coach, was the quarterback of that team. The last time Butler won 3 straight games, 1998. So if I was sorry, looking for my pick now, or what are we doing here?
Heck with it. You talked enough. We're going to go to Mike first for this.
All right.
Mike, what do you think? Erie at Butler.
I think they're going to get their first 3-game winning streak, real 3-game winning streak since 1998. I think they're going to beat Erie this time. I think they found something here, some confidence in these last 2 weeks, getting wins, nothing like wins to help a team's morale. I think Butler's morale is really high right now. I think Erie's prime, they had a prime chance to beat them the first time. I think they're not going to let that one, they're not going to squander that chance to beat them this time. So I think Butler's going to win. They're going to win 35-20, Butler.
Okay, John, does Butler close the season on a 3-game winning streak?
I think so, but I think it's going to be a closer game than what Mike's picking there. This Erie team, they are deadly at running the football. I mean, they have a huge line, and they have some talented D1 level skilled kids that they just run right at you. They ran for 380 plus yards when they played Butler the first time, but that being said, if Butler doesn't have a touchdown called back by a penalty late in the first half, I think Butler beats them up in Erie. They end up losing by 10 points. I'm picking Butler to win this game because I don't know if Erie's going to stop Butler very much either. But I'm picking 28-24 Butler.
Okay, and I said a couple weeks ago I found it very hard to pick Butler until they won. Well, they beat Blackhawk. I picked them last week to beat Slippery Rock. They did that. I like them to finish the season here on a 3-game winning streak. Erie's playing in the district championship game next weekend against McDowell, 2 weekends from now. So this is kind of exactly how much, is there going to be players for Erie that are going to be, maybe a little banged up. Maybe they're sitting out. I don't know how their coach is going to treat this game because no matter what happens, Erie is in the district final 2 weeks from now against McDowell. I do think it's going to be a high-scoring game, as John it's going to be kind of back and forth. I got Butler winning this game 31-30, and Eric Christie is part of another 3-game winning streak as he was back in 1998.
You know what? I did talk to the Erie coach earlier today as of this taping, and they're coming down here to win the game. They're coming down, all their horses are playing, and they need a victory. They only have 1 win this year, so they are coming down to try to win this game for sure.
Well, they're going to leave disappointed because Butler's going to win the game by 1 point. All right, now, man, Mike, John didn't tell you this, but you're actually on this game Saturday night up in Warren, 7 o'clock. Monotone. This game was
leave now.
Added, this game was added late to Monotone's schedule. Monotone at Warren, which is a good 2+ hour drive, especially on a bus from Monotone High School. John, do you see Monotone going up north and getting a win against the Dragons on Saturday night?
I think this could be a decent game actually, but Warren has this really good versatile player named James Swanson. He's got a lot of yards rushing. He's caught a good number of passes out of the backfield. He's a kind of a double threat on offense that way. I just don't know if Monotone has enough offense to get it done. I'm going with Warren in this game, 21-13.
Okay, Mike, do you agree with John on this one?
Monto's going to take that long bus ride up to Warren. They're going to get off the bus, and they're going to have to shake off the doldrums from that long trip. So they're going to get off to a slow start. I think that's going to doom them because But if Monotone gets off to a slow start, it's hard for them to come back with that offense they run. They completed 2 passes last week. They only threw 2 passes last week. They're a running team. If you get behind, it's almost hard for them to come back even from a 1-touchdown deficit. So I think Warren's going to win. This is going to be one of those slobber knockers we always talk about. I see it 12-8 Warren over Monotone.
Oh boy, this game's being played on Halloween night, so maybe there will be some weird stuff going on up in Warren County. But I think the game for me comes down to this. Monotone's strength on offense is running the ball. Warren does both things well. They're averaging over 230 yards passing per game. 230 yards rushing per game, over 125 yards passing per game. So that's a balance there that I don't think the Warriors are going to be able to compensate for. I think it's going to be a little bit too much for them. I think it's going to be a good game, though. I see Warren winning this game by 13. I got 34-21 Dragons. And
well, you know what? As our sports stringer Steve Sukovich says, passing is overrated, so you don't have to worry about passing if you want to talk. Don't have to worry about it.
Okay, hey, no problem. Here we go. Playoff time, and we're going to open up with Mars here because I want to focus on the Mars game first. They have an incredibly tough test. I mean, you look at the year Mars has had. They did get blown out by Plum. Other than that, 6 wins, dominant running game, good defense. And who do they get in the first round of the playoffs? The defending Whitfield and state champion Thomas Jefferson Jaguars. I will be headed down there, according to John, on Friday, so I'll get to see this game. But Mike, this is an incredibly tough game. It's going to be a tough out for Mars, and to move on to the second round, to move on to the semifinals, they have to beat the defending state champion. What do you think happens here?
When the brackets came out, I was scratching my head almost in every single one. I don't know what the thinking was going into some of these seedings. Freeport getting a 7 seed. We'll get to them later. Mars playing TJ. They have 1 loss, and they get TJ in the first round. Anyway, end of rant. Yeah, it's a tough. I mean, Mars is gonna obviously. I think going to give TJ a battle here. Teddy Ruffner and the rest of that team, is they're good enough, I think, to go there and make it a game. But I think TJ is going to win. I think it's going to be a tight game though. 28-21 TJ. I think Mars hangs in there with them. But I don't know what the Whitfield what was going through their head with some of these seedings.
John, do you know what was going on through their head with these?
Well, I think what it is when you have a limited playoff field, what is an 18 field here? So this is what happens. You're gonna have 1-loss teams getting stuck with low seeds because there's not that many teams in the playoffs, and I think that's what happened. I mean, I thought Mars had a real shot at hosting a game, which would have put them around a 4 seed. I am surprised they're as low as 7. I agree with Mike on that one. I'm also pretty close to Mike's final score here. I think Mars will hang in. I do think they're going to have to hit some passes, though, to stay in this game. Thomas Jefferson is too good to just load up Teddy Ruffner and just hammer away with Ruffner the entire game. That's pretty much worked for Mars most of this year. Against this Thomas Jefferson defense, which is outstanding, I'm not so sure. But I think Mars will hang in. I'm going 28-20, Thomas Jefferson.
Okay, Thomas Jefferson has actually played in 5 straight Whitfield championship games. And as I said earlier, they won last year's Whitfield title and state title. They have a quarterback named Jake Pugh, who's averaging about 100, almost 200 yards passing per game. I think that's going to be a little too much. Thomas Jefferson gets up by 10, 14. Obviously, Mars wants to run the football, and if they get down by a couple scores, maybe it's going to be on Quinn Fuller's shoulders, and he hasn't thrown the ball a whole lot this year. So I like TJ to win this game, 33-14. I think Ruffner will get his yards, but this is just a tough draw for Mars in the first round, and sadly, I think their season comes to an end here in the quarterfinals.
Well, you know what, Mars is. Well, I'm sorry, Derek. You know what, Mars' game plan, though, as it always is don't let the other team have the ball, and if they can succeed that way, they can keep this a tight game. Absolutely,
it certainly could happen. We'll see. I'll be there on Friday. Now we're going to move on to a Seneca Valley game at North Allegheny. The regular season game this year was canceled because of COVID. Now these teams they will meet after all on the field. This time a trip to the Whitfield championship game because 6A only takes 4 teams. The winner of this game goes to the Whitfield final, and this game's at North Allegheny's Newman Stadium at 7 o'clock on Friday. John, this is a game that I know Seneca's players had to be frustrated and disappointed over missing when it was supposed to be played back in September. Now it's a playoff game. The season's on the line. What happens in this game, Tigers and Raiders?
Well, when Seneca Valley and NA get together, it's almost always an extremely physical, defensive, low-scoring type of game. I expect something similar that this time around. But I look at North Allegheny. They gave up 21 points, and when they beat Central Catholic, I think it was 35-21. They've only given up 30 total points in the other 4 games. They only played 5 games this year. It's just really a different kind of season. I think Seneca hangs in. I think they hang in because of their defense, but I just don't know if the Raiders' offense, as banged up as it is or has been this year, can score enough points to beat them. I'm picking North Allegheny 21-10.
Mike, are you going with the Raiders?
No. This is going to be a defensive struggle, though. I just don't think Seneca has enough offense to dent North Allegheny enough to win this game. But I think their defense is going to keep them in it for the full 48 minutes. But I think NA comes out on top. I'm going to go 17-14 NA.
Okay. I think the difference in this game, at least one of them, is going to be Khalil Dinkins. He's listed as a wide receiver on North Allegheny's roster, but he actually leads the team in receiving and rushing. About 2 weeks ago, he verbally committed to go to Penn State.
Yep.
They could have used him this past Saturday against Indiana. I know that. But I agree with you guys. I wish we could have seen what Seneca Valley could have done this year in the regular season and on into the playoffs with a healthy team, with a healthy Dustin Horn at quarterback, Ethan West at running back. But I just don't think they have enough offense to pull this one out. I see North Allegheny winning this game 26-13. And now we're going to move on to, Mike, this is a game you alluded to earlier, Freeport. What a story they've been this year. Losing their starting quarterback before the season, then they move a running back to quarterback Ben Lane. He's been playing great. And now I read John Gaylot's quote in the paper on Sunday. He said, "We better not get a wild card because we just hung in with North Catholic, and they're obviously great. They get a wild card." So now they're headed south to Elizabeth Forward, an undefeated Elizabeth Forward team. Mike, you see Freeport pulling this one out. It's a tough draw for them too.
No, they're going to play well, though. They're going to give it everything they have like they always do. Like I said, they went toe-to-toe with North Catholic. Of course, North Catholic didn't play their best game. They had 5 turnovers, some bad snaps. Joey Prentice went out with a thumb injury. I don't know what his status is, but still, Freeport hung in there. They didn't back down from that very physical North Catholic defense. I don't think they're going to back down from Elizabeth Forward either. They have a big chip on their shoulder. They had one all season. Now it's going to enormous. They're like Quasimodo with this big chip on their shoulder. I don't know if it's going to be enough though. I think Elizabeth Forward's still going to win this game, but Freeport's going to give them all they can muster. I think it's going to be 24-14 Elizabeth Forward win.
All right, John, are you staying on the Jackets bandwagon?
I'll tell you what. First off, before I make my pick, kudos to Freeport this year. I mean, the days before their opener, they lose a starting quarterback to cancer. They end up moving, as Derek, as you mentioned, they end up moving a running back to quarterback. They lost 2 games of the COVID-19 situation, and here they are. Those kids just play gritty, hard-nosed football.
They have 6 starters out on them.
Yep. I mean, all the respect in the world to the Yellow Jackets, and I'll tell you what, I'm picking Elizabeth Forward to win a close game here. My pick is 21-17, but this is a winnable game for Freeport because I looked at EF. EF is 6-0, but they beat South Allegheny 20-14. They only beat Mount Pleasant 16-14. Those are decent opponents, but they just skirted by a couple times. This is a winnable game for Freeport. I won't be shocked if they do win, but I'm picking Elizabeth Forward in a close game, 21-17.
A couple of weeks ago, we did our Coach of the Year segment. I'm going to change it to John Gaylot.
There you go.
Freeport's one of those teams. All the reasons you guys just gave, they are a very, very easy team to root for. Kind of, the chip on their shoulder. You can see exactly why they have that, and I think that's going to serve them well against EF. And I'm going out on a limb here. I'm picking the Freeport Yellow Jackets on the road this week against a 6-0 team. EF runs into John Gaylot's bunch, and I see this game being very tight, but I like Freeport to come out of this game 23-20. And, hey, it's a limb, but I've fallen off of limbs before. I don't care.
I hope you're right, Derek.
Freeport, yeah. You mentioned Mount Pleasant, John. This is my dad's alma mater, so he's going to be sick when he sees the score. This week, Mount Pleasant. My dad, graduate 1970, at North Catholic. Games being played at Mars. That's where North Catholic plays their home games. Mount Pleasant. I will say this for Mount Pleasant. They did, as you said, John. They hung in with an undefeated Elizabeth Forward team. Only lost to them by 2 points, 16-14. Now they're playing a Trojan team that is also undefeated. You see this game even being close here, John.
Unfortunately for your dad's alma mater there, I think it's going to be one of those thank you for participating kind of deals for them. I see North Catholic rolling. I'm picking the Trojans 38-12. Like I said, I do give Mount Pleasant credit for hanging tough with Elizabeth Forward, but that's been a trend for Elizabeth Forward. As I mentioned, they've had a few close games. I think North Catholic is not going to play around with this game. I think they put it away early.
Okay, Mike, you agree with John here.
38-12. That was my score. No, it wasn't. I'm just kidding. North Catholic, they weren't happy about how they played against Freeport. Like I said, they had turnovers. It's just like Coach O'Shea said, it was kind of a foggy night. They kind of played in the fog for most of the night. They got the win. I think they cleaned it up this week. I feel bad for Elizabeth Forward because they're going to run into this buzzsaw. North Catholic's not going to have two bad games in a week. I don't know the status of Joey Prentice. It didn't look good. His thumb was pretty compromised. He tried to come back in the game, couldn't finish. But Carson Laconey, not much of a drop off there. You know, they those two had a big battle in preseason for the job. Joey Prentice won it, but I think they're just comfortable with Carson Laconey running that offense. He did a good job. I think North Catholic's going to roll in this one, 45-7.
Okay, 45-7. One other score I do want to point out here. I'm a stat guy. I'm a numbers guy. I thought this was interesting. North Catholic played South Park this year, beat them 28-2. You guys remember that score?
Yep,
it was a little odd score a few weeks ago. Mount Pleasant also played South Park this year, and South Park beat Mount Pleasant 30-19. So obviously, South Park was able to put up the points on Mount Pleasant, and I think North Catholic will too as well. I see the Trojans winning this game without much trouble at all, 30-7. Sorry, Dad. We're going to move on to the Karr City at Brookfield game. I thought John was going to send me to Brockway for this one, but he didn't.
Yep.
So
to your curve.
Karr City and Brookfield for the second time this year, 44-0 the first time around. The Raiders dominated. This is for the district championship, though. This is for the right to go to the state playoffs and extend your season. We talked about Karr City's rushing game earlier in the show. John, is it going to be enough to carry the Gremlins to a victory over the undefeated Brookfield Raiders?
I don't think it will be. I do think Karr City's running game, as I mentioned earlier, will be better this time around, but it's not going to be enough. Brookfield just has too much. Their pass game, led by Jack Krug, just incredible. This kid's thrown for 2,200 yards, 30 touchdowns. He's been picked off 3 times all year. I mean, Caden Shear had 3 picks just last week for the Gremlins. Karr City, to win this game, they're going to have to turn that Brookfield offense over probably 2 or 3 times. I don't see that happening. I think Karr City hangs in for a while. Brookfield wears them down eventually, 35-20. Brookfield.
Mike, does Karr City move on in this game? No, it's going to be a much better game, though, a much closer game. It's not going to be 44-0, that's for sure. We did the over-under. I said Karr City's going to go a little bit under, though 125.5. They're going to have to throw, but they can throw. They have weapons. Eric Boer's been a good passer for them this year, but I just don't see Karr City being able to slow down that Brookfield passing attack, that Brookfield offense. This could be a shootout. I think both teams are going to put up some points, but I see Brookfield winning 42-30.
Okay, I talked to Joe Sherwin, Karr City's coach, on the field after last Friday's playoff win over Central Clarion. I said, you guys have struggled running the ball this year. What was the secret tonight? And he said, we told the offensive line before the game, it's up to you guys. Well, it's going to be up to the offensive line in that running game to keep Karr City in this game. I think they will for a while. I don't think Brookville's going to jump out to a big lead like they did in the regular season matchup, but in the end, I agree with you guys. I mean, Jack Krug is just, losing to him and that Brookville team, which again is undefeated. I don't think there's no shame in that. I think Karr City plays much better this time, but they still come away with a loss. I think Brookville's the team that moves on with a 32-16 win. And our final game of the week. This is actually for the third time this year, right, Mike? Slippery Rock at Hickory?
Yeah, third time. Third time might be a charm for Slippery Rock, but
we'll see. I covered the first game at Slippery Rock. Hickory won that game 45-0. A few weeks later, they played at Hickory. that game was closer. I believe it was 28-7. So now it's time for the Rockets to either find a way to beat Hickory or go home. John, what happens in this game in Hermitage?
I think it'll be a closer game. But I still think see the same team winning though. Unfortunately for the Rockets, I was able to see Slip Rock play, but last week they came down to Butler and played. I was impressed with Slip Rock, the intensity with which they play. They really hit on defense. They are a little banged up on offense. Shane Thompson, their leading running back, did not play last week. I'm certain I'll be established for this week. Hickory, though, Michael Henwood, he's just a handful. He's a handful running, he's a handful throwing. Hickory's a defense. Usually when the team has a quarterback that good, a lot of times the defense gets overlooked. But Hickory's defense is very stingy also. They're hard to score on. I see Slip Rock, again, playing him even closer this time, but still not enough. I'm picking Hickory 28-14.
Mike,
is it the end of the Rockets season this week?
Unfortunately, but like we said, each time they've played Hickory, it's gotten closer. Right? This one, I think they're going to get closer. But like John said, Henwood is just too much of a struggle to stop. Sibrock's going to have trouble stopping him. Sibrock's been playing a slew of these running, passing quarterbacks all year. They're getting better at it, but it's just not going to be enough. I see Hickory winning this one, 35-21.
All right, pretty much everything I wanted to say about this game you guys just said, so I'll just give my score. Hickory 33-14. Hornets move on, and that does it for the pick segment. And
by the way, Derek, before we get into the last segment, how did we all do last week? Where were we at standings wise here?
You had to bring that up, didn't you, John?
I did.
You, Scoop, and Mike all went 8-0.
All right,
hey.
There we go.
And I was the black sheep. I went 6-2.
Oh.
So now, John, you are leading the standings at 48-13. Pretty
good record.
Yeah, solid.
And me, Mike, and Scoop are all tied at I guess that would be what, 44 and 17.
John is running away with it.
You got a 4-game lead on everybody.
See, I thought there was a reason why you were trying to skirt by last week's picks. I figured there was a reason.
John is running away with it.
The 2 games I lost were the District 9 playoff games. I lost both of them. So now we're going to talk about something I definitely think deserves attention. We touched on Knox girls tennis team earlier in the fall, but I think this should be noted. Obviously, just last week they won their first ever Whitfield team title. Okay, so they in one season they won their singles title, the Whitfield singles title with Laura Greb. Allie Bauer and Brooke Bauer won the doubles title in the Whitfield, and now they win the Whitfield team title. So it's a trifecta. It's all three titles in one season. Mike, how impressive is this? And I'm sure you could see these girls making a run at the state too.
It's very impressive. This year wasn't an easy year to do something like this with everything going on with COVID and the disruptions. But Knox just went out and did what they needed to do. They won their matches. Brooke Bauer, talk about the way she battled in her 3-hour match that ended up being the clincher. She wins it with an ace. Knox just solid from top to bottom. All 3 singles players to both doubles teams are just solid from top to bottom. They have a real shot at winning a state title. I think they're going to go all the way and do it.
John, Knox tennis. We knew they were good coming into this year, but this accomplishment, winning team, singles, and doubles in the Whitfield all in one season, it's got to really put their accomplishment this year just kind of above obviously what they had done even before this year. It's pretty incredible. It really is.
Oh, definitely. And they had to, well, I won't say they had to, but it was likely they were going to get past the Whitby Academy eventually. They finally did it this year. But I was impressed with the way they did it. It came down to that last match involving Brooke Bauer, as Mike mentioned, and she got smoked pretty good in that opening set. And then to come back to the way that she did and win it for her team was pretty impressive. And the other thing I'd like to mention about Knox tennis is they're not going away after this year. Yeah, Brooke Bauer's done, Laura Greb's done, but Emily Greb, Laura's younger sister, she's a freshman this year, and she went far in the Whitfield singles, got knocked out by her own sister actually in the semifinals, I think it was. She's back, only be a sophomore next year. She has a twin sister who was hurt this year, who according to Coach Nancy Conley is every bit the player that Emily is. So this Knox program, even beyond this year, is not going to go away.
against Sewickley Academy, they lost 3 straight Whitfield finals matches the last 3 years. They also lost to Sewickley Academy in last year's state final. So to beat Sewickley for the Whitfield title, it just had to make it that much sweeter. And obviously they have a chance to make a run at states as a team. And don't forget Laura Greb's in the state singles tournament. Allie Bauer, Brooke Bauer, the sisters are involved in the state doubles tournament. So we'll see how it
get a
turns
double
out.
trifecta.
It would be awesome.
Don't be surprised. Don't be surprised if Mock and Sewickley Academy meet up again in the state final. Either that could happen.
They can't.
Oh, they're in the same side of the. Oh, that's right.
No,
They only take. You're right. You're right. My
Knock,
mistake.
yeah.
My
So
mistake.
that makes it a little easier for Knock.
It kind of does. Really, really kind of does.
Again.
Yep. You're right. It's a good point.
So kudos to Knock Tennis. Great accomplishments so far. Good luck the rest of the way. And we'll be back next week to review Week 8 in Butler County High School football. Thank you.